Man, who gave you permission to mow lawns around here?
She asked me to help.
She hasn't kept this place up in months.
Ma'am, why does it need to be done today?
My husband is coming home tomorrow.
How long has he been gone?
14 months.
The neighbor thought Mrs. Margaret had simply stopped caring about her house. The grass was knee-high, weeds had swallowed the walkway, and bushes covered half the porch railing. But when I asked Margaret why she needed the yard cleaned that day, she looked toward the driveway and said, "My husband is coming home tomorrow." I assumed he had been traveling. Then she added, "He hasn't been home in 14 months. Margaret was 82. Her husband Henry was 85 and living in a nursing facility after a severe stroke left him unable to walk without help. They had been married almost 60 years. For most of their marriage, Henry handled the yard while Margaret took care of the flowers. Every evening they sat together on the porch, even if it was only for 10 minutes. Then Henry had his stroke. Margaret tried caring for him at home, but eventually he needed more support than she could safely provide. The day he moved into the facility, she followed the transport van all the way there, then came back to an empty house and sat on the porch until dark. "That was the last day I cared what the grass looked like," she told me. Since then, Margaret visited Henry 3 times a week. She took the bus when family couldn't drive her. She brought him photographs, his favorite cookies, and recordings of baseball games. But Henry hadn't been strong enough to come home, till now. The nursing staff had arranged a short visit for the next day because it was their 60th wedding anniversary. Margaret's only request was that Henry spend a few hours in the house where they had built their life. There was one problem. His wheelchair couldn't safely reach the porch anymore. The walkway had narrowed under weeds, the bushes blocked one side, and the small wooden ramp Henry's son built after the stroke was buried beneath grass. "I don't need the yard pretty," Margaret said. "I just need him to get through his own front door." So I started with the ramp. I cut away every weed, cleared the concrete, trimmed the bushes back, and checked the route from the driveway to the porch. Margaret sat nearby telling me stories. Henry proposed to her at a diner with $8 in his pocket. Their first house had no air conditioning. They raised 2 daughters here. They argued about money, wallpaper, and whether pineapple belonged on pizza. Then Margaret laughed and said, "60 years means you eventually forget what half the arguments were about." When the ramp was finally clear, she asked me to help with one more thing. Near the porch was an old patch of red flowers almost completely buried beneath weeds. Henry had planted them every spring because Margaret carried red carnations on their wedding day. I carefully cleared around them. Most were gone, but a few small blooms were still there. Margaret knelt as far as her knees would allow and touched one gently. "He'll notice," she whispered. The neighbor who had tried to stop me was still